And welcome back to the Late for Load In podcast. I'm Chris. I'm here with my co-host Josh. And on this week's episode, we have one of my very, very good friends, Mr. Jeremy Weiss of CI Records, CI Productions, the Launch Music Conference, and he also co-promotes the Christmas Burns Red Festival with the guys in August Burns Red every year. And Jeremy, I've known for a very long time, and he, like I've mentioned a bunch of times, Josh and our very good friend Darren are a big reason that I even got into this world of music back in the day. Jeremy is the guy who gave me the big break moment. He called me and asked me to fill in for Texas in July, which is how I ended up in that band for a number of years. And he actually managed the band for a long time. He was the band's original label owner with CI Records. He booked the band for the first year that I was in the band. So he was kind of the jack of all trades and really opened that door and kind of gave me my step into making this, whole music thing my career. And I really do owe him pretty much everything.
It was pretty funny to hear you guys going back and forth and talking about some of your experiences overseas and things like that. But what I found the most fascinating was hearing his early days of producing records. Just hearing about the process in which, sorry, this cat is making a bunch of noise over here.
That's staying in.
Yeah, it's fine. I had to throw something at him, and I'm going to throw something else at him because he's trying to do it again. Hearing his early days of the way that actually pressing vinyl and all for the first time was just, insane to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, him talking about how, back in those early days, when you didn't know how to do something, you would just call somebody else who did. There was obviously no internet to, I can't Google, how do I press this, 7-inch for my band? It's well, let me call Ian MacKay and ask him how he does it for Minor Threat. It's that was just how it worked back in the day for the early punk days.
And two, realizing that he is kind of like one of the pioneers for the punk metal hardcore scene in Lancaster. I mean, he built it, off of his back, and because he wanted a place to have shows in his hometown. So he just said, fuck it, I'm going to build one myself if you're not going to put one there for me.
Yeah. He basically said, I did it for selfish reasons, but and you know what? Fair enough. Because it led to Lancaster is not what most people would consider an A market by any means, but I can tell you from experience, and maybe some of it's a little biased because I was in a Lancaster band for many years and I consider it a second home, but I can pretty much guarantee you that if you've ever played Lancaster, that it is a great market to play. The culture in that city is super cool and interesting. It's a really cool artsy town, and it's a great place to play shows. So, and a lot of that, like you said, is completely to do with Jeremy really taking the initiative to build that scene up from literally nothing.
I'm really looking forward to actually going there this weekend for launch. Both of us are going, and I get to see a part of your new adopted heritage of what the Amish lifestyle is like. And you guys got into that, and I learned a little bit about that culture. Is it considered a culture? I guess it's a culture, right? Just learning about that a little bit and hearing some of those stories. And I'm excited to attend launch this weekend. And, I think you and I are on a panel together. Yep. So this is going to be a fun episode and a fun weekend ahead.
I'm going to take you around to see all of the legendary spots, all of the horse and buggy parkings. Well, on that note, I hope you enjoy this week's episode with Jeremy Weiss of CI Records. This episode of Late for Load-In is brought to you by Rockabilia.com, your go-to destination for 100% official band merchandise. No bootlegs, no cheap knockoffs, just authentic gear straight from the bands you love. From metal and punk to classic rock and beyond, Rockabilia has over 500,000 items in stock. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, patches, and even rare, hard-to-find collectibles. If you're looking for something exclusive, Rockabilia drops brand new limited edition merch every month. So if you see something you like, grab it before it's gone. And in fact, we just placed an order for some new merch ourselves. I picked up a very, very cool Linkin Park Meteora hoodie. Josh, did you grab something?
Yeah, I grabbed a couple things. I got a super limited Eminem tour shirt, and then what you mentioned not missing out. I saw a Meatloaf tour shirt from 2005 that I really, really wanted. Unfortunately, I didn't have my size, so I missed out on that one.
Well, there you have it. Don't wait. Our friends at Rockabilia are hooking up Late for Load-In listeners with 10% off when you use code LOAD at checkout. So if your band T collection needs a refresh and you want to support the artists who make the music we love, hit up rockabilia.com, load up your cart, and drop in code LOAD, LOAD, for that sweet discount. Now let's roll today's show. Jeremy Weiss, welcome to the Late for Load In podcast. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you, man.
Hello. That was not intentional, but it kind of worked. Right?
It worked out perfectly.
How have you been?
Good, man. How are you? It's awesome. Always awesome to talk to you.
Yeah, you and I have had many a long form phone conference. You know what, Josh? Just so you know, if there's ever been a point in time where I've had to drive through the night, Jeremy's my night. He's my night owl buddy. I know that I can rely on him for a phone call from anywhere from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Him and I will talk for hours about absolutely nothing. We've done it multiple occasions.
I have this really cool rule too. Like as soon as you pull in the driveway, just hang up. Like don't worry about it.
Don't even say bye.
I know I was on fire. I was really on something there, but we'll get it later.
First things first, we're coming up on Launch Music Conference this weekend. Both Chris and I are speaking on panels. I'm curious to know what inspired you to start this conference and how did it all come about?
It's actually a pretty easy answer. I was a tour manager and I was learning about these other conferences. It was like end of the first 10 years of South by. It was still kind of smallish, and intimate. And I was like, why are we playing this venue? Like emos or whatever, but it's called South by Southwest. And I started sticking my, head around the corner and realizing that it was like this music conference, like for people like me. I couldn't believe it. And then through the years, there was something called CMJ, College Music Journal, was this thing they used to publish in colleges and stuff. And that was in New York City. A couple of bands I was tour managing were playing that. And then there was one called the MAC Conference in Virginia or West Virginia. That part I don't remember, but close to the border. And that was a third one. And I'm like, this is amazing because there's a DIY thing coming out of like my punk upbringing and stuff where you just called somebody and said, hi, Jello Biafra, can you tell me how to press a record? And that was cool. But things were evolving quickly, with underground music. And I thought there would be a cool way to merge like the do-it-yourself ethic with being prepared for success in the other world. So that's why I started it pretty much.
Was there any sort of like, what would what would you say the biggest challenge is for like getting something like this off the ground? Because it's not a small undertaking. Like I know that you have multiple venues around the city that are running. You're doing multiple different panels throughout the day. Like the first year, I can't even imagine where I would try to begin to try to get all of that off the ground. Like, what would you say that the biggest hurdle was?
Honestly, I think we kind of winged it the first couple of years. Like we paid a lot of attention to similarly styled events and we kind of co-opted the things we liked and jettisoned the things we didn't think were cool. The hardest thing to do is get it through mostly to musicians or aspiring music professionals what the hell it is, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to add the term festival because it's a showcase event. But showcase is a very conference term, Right. And some people may remember you'd showcase in New York City for labels and stuff. Well, that's exactly what it is. So all the panelists, you guys, like you're encouraged to go out and see bands. And I only really entertain bringing people in, colleagues to speak who have an openness to like having their mind blown by something new.
Right.
So even if you thought like, oh, my studio's busy enough, or I don't need another management client, or I'm not going to recommend this to my buddy with a label, and I'm not going to come home with anything. At least you're like willing to allow that to happen. And so really the panelists are supposed to go see bands. All the bands are supposed to support each other. Then the community has to come out. Well, that's two of those groups it's really difficult to explain to them. So we add the term festival because there's 157 acts playing this year, 150, 60 on average every year for the first 16 years. And therefore, a band sees that or an artist and they're like, I want to play a festival. We're like, well, hold on. You also get 2 days of programming on how not to make all the stupid fucking mistakes I made,
And me.
and
Yep.
you can ask
And
the
me.
people I ask.
I got to tell you, the only thing that I'm not looking forward about this weekend is that I'm forced to spend 3 or 4 days with Chris. That's going to be tough for me, but I think I'll be able to get through it. How would you say that the conference and festival has evolved over the years from where you started to where it is now?
That's a good question, because I think the coolest part is there are no format rules. Like I tell the guys every year, the whole crew, like, we can make this whatever the hell we want this year. And it's because it sounds kind of generic, but the ever changing landscape of the music industry, right? So
Sure.
if you just I participated in a number of these events. I really admire the effort, but we're going to talk about tour booking. Then we're going to talk about marketing. Then those things stay in the program, but the way that they come across can be different. So if you're talking about marketing, you may be talking about starting a podcast. You may be talking about, how to circumlocute like the usual way to do things. We can't all just say, well, Bring Me the Horizon did this in a video, so we're going to do this.
Right.
And we'll be Bring Me the Horizon. Those things aren't, I hear that a lot. I hear things like, you got to go out and stick your flag in every city you can. I want to know how, right? And there are incremental ways to bring that to fruition. Like if you started a podcast and you talked about the venue or interviewed that promoter, you probably have a pretty good chance of getting a gig there. I want to give credit where credit is due. That was a sentiment shared to me by Spencer Carpenter, one of my former employees who's going to be at launch. And I thought that was a really unique perspective. Chris, you did a lot with Twitch, and it was a completely different way to reach your audience. No?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the internet is both the worst thing to ever happen to humanity and at the exact same time, one of the best ways that we have to stay connected, to promote ourselves, to promote anything that we have going on. And it's, I do think that things like Twitch, like YouTube, like podcasts, like for whatever reason, the music industry as a whole tends to be very slow to change in these types of ways. Like I can remember a time when Texas was touring and I was first starting to get into consuming YouTube a lot and finding YouTubers that I really enjoyed and thinking they were so cool. And then hearing other people talk about how they're not cool because they're a YouTuber. And I'm like, but wait a second here. Like, why? I just feel like the music industry is so resistant to change. And like, I appreciate that you're giving a platform to people to talk about these alternative avenues of promoting yourself, of gaining exposure, of making connect. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people, fellow musicians, guitar players in all genres of the music industry that I met from Twitch, because everybody that is in our industry, when the pandemic hit, everybody's lives stopped and everybody had to figure out how to make money and stay relevant. And so I was one of literally thousands of musicians who started doing Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that. And I was meeting and talking to so many people that I probably never would have had the chance of having a one-on-one connection with. But because I put myself onto this platform where other people were existing, I made so many connections that way that I think that we're overdue to embrace these parts of the internet and what technology allows us to do now, for sure.
It's been pretty amazing too. We talked about the podcast thing, and when this concept for this show came about, it was a little, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but I'll use it for lack of better terms, because it is a little outside of character for me. But man, it's been so oddly rewarding to be able to have these type of conversations with people like yourself and others, that we get to really, get to know our friends almost on a different level than what you would, typically have a phone conversation where you're catching up with a buddy, So it's been really, 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 really neat. I was also curious though, was it always a part of the plan to launch a multi-city thing, or is it, just branching out slowly, or what? Because I know you've started branching out to Dallas. Was that always a part of the plan, or did it just come about?
Well, it does take a special partnership, because I think, look, when you plan an event, any kind of event, a festival, a concert, anything, my philosophy has always been, you have to make it appear to be low stress and you have to make it appear to be easy, right? And I know both of you through touring have rolled into a venue. You didn't get the best night's sleep. Maybe it wasn't the smoothest drive. The weather was bad, whatever. And you've got a promoter who's like, oh my God, I'll be with you in a minute. Oh my God, it's like the worst day, and you're like, oh, great. This is going to be awesome, or, where's the catering? Well, he had to go get a patch cable, or something like that. So my ambition, having been the tour manager and a failed performer, on the other side of that,
same.
Like, I really wanted to make it appear that everything was at ease. Even with the all ages venue, there'd be 150, 200 people coming. A band would roll in. They were on tours from Florida, and they're just like, so grilled, and they start asking questions, the tough questions, what time's this happen and what time's that happen? And I would always say, like, hold on, I don't know what you've been through before, but I could take a guess. You're in a really safe space right now. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
We care. We're going to get you completely at ease. You're going to, and that's how, on a larger scale, it's quite a challenge with launch and with Christmas Burns Red. But my goal is to make it social, and you're supposed to kind of make it look easy, right? Because even though people can say, oh, you got to be out of your mind right now, or you're probably so busy right now, I don't think that's attractive. And I don't think that that's welcoming or puts people in a comfortable space. I really try to do that. So that's a big part of it, I think. But it does have a million moving parts. We burn tons and tons of midnight oil, especially the few days leading up to it, there's no sleep. But again, that's not something you want to, like, hey, how you doing? I'm exhausted. I don't care for that.
Right. I have one venue in particular. I've met a ton of great promoters over the years, but there's one in particular. Thomas Gutches used to run the venue in Sac.
Ace of Spades.
He used to run Ace of Spades back in the day, and he was the best at that. I would come in and he would be like, hey man, you ready for your day off? Because he would do everything for me. It was the best thing ever. And I would still obviously work and do what I needed to do, but like, his above and beyond effort, I'll just never forget that. Every time when I knew I was coming to Ace and he was going to be there, I knew it was going to be an easy, smooth sailing day. It was awesome.
Yeah, he's the best. He always was the best. So
he's a real one for sure.
Oh, he is.
Yeah,
he
for
is.
Sure.
You did Dallas for the first time this year. Do you imagine you'll expand outside of Lancaster, Dallas? Are you going to go back to Dallas? Anywhere else?
Oh yeah, I was supposed to answer that.
I was leading you back there. I know how this works with you.
You're a magician. This is the genius of Jeremy Weiss. I think what I was getting at was I need like-minded people to partner with. I need them to understand how many moving parts there are and how much help we need, but also the same culture around it is very important to me. Self-important people would say branding, right? But it's more than that to me. It's the culture around it, right? People are already so freaking worked up, and they're so desperate to make this work, and they're getting a lot of criticism at home and such. So enter Mike Zemer, right? Who I've known for a very, very long time. I mean, Chris, you guys went down and did So What, and he took a bunch of other CI bands, and he's been a real one to me. Like, and he's come to launch a number of times, and he would express like, I want to do one in Dallas, or I want to do one in Los Angeles. I'd say, okay. But I need that person to really understand what they're getting into. So a few years later, we actually just made it happen. Mike opened a venue down in Deep Ellum portion of Dallas. That was awesome. That would be a central hub. So are we looking to franchise? I'll dip back to something I said earlier. It's like, you keep doing you keep trying to do it the best you can. And if people want it, you keep doing it. And if they don't want it, you stick and move, and you go find something else that's enriching to keep you busy and fulfilling. And hopefully they want that. So launch would have just stayed Lancaster, but this is addition. This is great. This guy understands what we need. He has a lot of the infrastructure in place and all the relationships there. And that's why we are there. So we were prepared for the franchise. I had that all worked out, all written out. There's pages on pages. One of the CI artists was a lawyer. He helped me a little bit with and then I had to cut out all the dumb shit, and make it possible for someone. But I really do think that, again, we were prepared to go anywhere, anytime, but we weren't counting on it. And that's what makes it even cooler, I think. And
Sure.
the first year was honestly, not in a boastful way, in an enthusiastic way, it was awesome. It was awesome.
That's great. Yeah, like I said, I think it's a really unique opportunity for artists in general. I'm not gonna say bands, because you do feature like hip hop artists and R&B artists, and like it's not just a bands thing. It's just like a music industry wide. It's a unique opportunity for people to mingle and meet other industry professionals and learn from people who have, you know, like you said, made the dumb mistakes like all of us here on this call have done, and learn how to not make those yourself. And so I think that any other way that we could, that you get an opportunity to move it city to city and create more opportunities like that, I think is awesome. I think it's great.
I think it's great too. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I remember, I've done South by a number of times. I actually remember when I got my first South by JanSport. I think I still have it somewhere with the little patch on the side.
I've never done South by.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
No, I've only done So What, which I guess it was rebranded to be So What and not South by So What. But
South by So What.
That's the closest that's the closest I got to doing South by.
So you've done a South by.
Yeah, you've done A, just not the.
That's okay. That's fair. You guys got me there.
Not the.
That's true.
Let's rewind back a little bit. What were your earlier days like? Do you remember what made you decide to go into the music business?
Oh man, it's hardcore punk music. It was not a business. It was just a passion. Like,
sure.
I played tennis for a while. I played baseball, but hardcore and punk music like took over my entire mind, body, and soul. It was admittedly, for a guy like me in my early 50s, like it was not a great time for modern pop music anyway. So it was kind of easy to be searching for something else. I also have two older brothers that were into like a lot of 70s British punk and oi music and stuff. So I was getting really inordinately early exposure to that kind of stuff. I really loved that you could build something, and I've always been this way. I mean, I almost got thrown out of school in 7th grade for selling candy bars and blow pops during break.
Nothing about that statement shocks me at all. Knowing you, all of that is perfectly describes you as a human being to a T. All of it.
I don't know. Born hustler, man.
Yeah, there you go.
But I wanted to do my life on my terms at 11. Yeah. Like I took on 4 paper routes and strung them all together, because I wanted autonomy financially and with my schedule. I wanted things that I could do. And I think thinking back on that, that's like a huge part of why I loved the DIY movement. So, I got into this stuff. I was addicted. I mean, I was going to shows constantly well before I could drive, getting dropped off. And admittedly, barring the super beat down stuff, they were violent situations. I was tiny. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but I'd have my parents drop me off a block away, or my aunt and be like, "I'll take it from here."
Yeah.
But
so they didn't know what you were getting into?
No, not at all. But then my dad was in a band in the 60s. They toured the country. They were on like American Bandstand. They were signed to ABC Paramount.
Yeah, but no one was getting beat up at those shows.
No. Unless you were talking to his girl,
right.
Or something like that. But
right.
He did support my obsession with music, that part. So early on, I was doing shows at the Lidditz Rec Center, and my dad like shows up out of nowhere and works the door at 7 Seconds or Youth of Today. And he's the only person in charge over 15, So I look back on that. I mean, Chris, you're a dad. Are you a dad?
Yeah.
Josh?
2.
Okay. So you can think, right, that's pretty moving later on. Like, oh my God, that was super cool, right?
Absolutely.
So getting into all of that, the early days though were like, it was verboten to like make money. You did not want to make money at all.
I feel like up until recently, it's been kind of taboo to, especially in heavier styles of music. Up until recently, it's been pretty taboo to say that you make any money or that you care to make any money. It's still kind of a new thing to even be allowed to mention it.
Yeah. Permission, right? Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing. Even in the subgenres, there were tracks of heavy music that were totally allowed to make as much money as they wanted. They were just too cool, But we had then, and to some extent, certainly now, like a social conscience, and it was more of a socio-political thing. And you didn't want to bastardize those sentiments with like financial stuff, right? You weren't selling good messages to the highest bidder. So I think when I got older, I was like 18, 19, 20, and I started to realize that all my favorite promoters who were doing my favorite shows, everybody was aging out like they used to age out of extreme music in general. And I was just determined not to age out. I didn't understand that. Like, why did I need to graduate to my mid-20s, and real life and real this and real that, all that sense of that crap, I met a woman who accepted exactly who I was and what I wanted to do. And then I took years to overcome the immense guilt of trying to make a very modest sustenance to live, So I really did all the squad house tours. I did all the sleeping, anywhere, anytime in a hot van on a hot beach and indoors, outdoors, everything, trying to make it as feasible to still live and not have to enter the other kind of society. And I don't know, it just kept going and going and going. And, when you're building a house and a family and you realize like your lifestyle might not be the one they signed up for, like certainly not your kids. They might just have to have like soccer camp money and stuff. You allow yourself to be a little more forgiving about that. And now I think it's fairly obvious. I think if you spend 30, 35 years doing something, it's okay that you're not eating cat food, So that's how I look at it. Early on, first 10 years were rough, man. It was like a push and pull. Like, I want to do this full time. I want to bring the raddest stuff to this small market, but I can't if I work at Office Max or the pizza shop or.
I feel like I should know this about you. And for some reason, I feel like I've never asked. Are you born and raised in Lancaster or Lancaster County area? Okay. So I guess my question then is being that Lancaster is not exactly what I would consider the mecca of heavy music or even what many would consider an A market, how the hell did you even find yourself in the punk? Was there a scene in Lancaster County back then, or did you have to go to like Philly or Baltimore to get shows?
I was talking to this guy about this recently who's writing some book, and I'm like, back then you were encouraged to build your own community.
Sure.
So I begged, borrowed, and stole every person I could get. I didn't give a damn what they listened to or what they wore. And I would pack them in, when I was younger, and the whole high school would come to these shows, and then the real ones would show up and tried to foster like a sense of, let them learn,
Right.
Because I was going to DC. Yes. I was going to Brooklyn. I was going to New York City. I was going, some people in Harrisburg were bringing things through. I was definitely traveling to Baltimore and parts Philadelphia to see the shows. To answer your other question, yeah, you'd walk up to them and you'd be like, I do shows. Do you want to play my town? Sometimes they would say in 4 days, and you would set that up.
You basically almost sounds like single-handedly built the scene in Lancaster.
For selfish reasons.
He's going to be very diplomatic about this, I feel like, on right now.
I mean, that's pretty damn cool, though. I mean,
for selfish reasons. And there were people ahead of me who, like I said, when I was 13, 14, did really cool shows. But like I said, they felt this need almost to like move on. Like there was some kind of, ascribed societal shame to keep doing the thing you love. Isn't that ridiculous?
I have a crazy question, because I remember going to Lancaster when I was a kid to the outlets, and the whole big thing was the Amish people. Amish people. Did the Amish people ever come to shows?
We've had some people, because they have that Rumspringa period where they get a year or two to decide, what they want to be. But it's kind of ironic, because they either dress in the full garb, which is hilarious, that they're in Rumspringa, but they couldn't get new kicks and, new fit. And then some of them do like try to drive, but right?
Yeah.
And it is cool to watch them while out at like a total
And is
American
the thing-
Nightmare show or something.
Is the thing with the Amish, they don't have any electricity in it? Is that true?
That is a total fact. Yeah. So we have Mennonite, which is kind of you can drive your car to church and the grocery store, and then there's like old order Amish who there's nothing. And I spent the weekend on a farm. It was interesting.
Isn't the thing with Mennonite too? They can drive, but their car has to be black or something like that.
You got it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting to me. I wish they would make a documentary on that.
There's got to be a documentary on that.
My great aunt, Ebersole was her last name, never married because she was married to the church. And she sold me her 67 Chevy Nova in 89, and it had like 18,000 miles on it.
Did she only drive it from her house to the church and back, and that's
it?
Yeah.
And the market. And that is it. Yeah.
You know what? Good for her. And what a steal for you.
Did you put the car through hell or what?
Yes. Absolutely. Immediately. Yes. Ruined a good thing as fast as I could.
Naturally, as all of us young men do typically. At what point did you start playing in bands? Because you ended up in an Equal Vision band, did you not?
Yes.
So how did that come about?
You start a scene because you want people to like the shit you like, and then you pick from that scene like the people that really like it, and then you punish your parents for years in their basement. Yep. So that's how that happened. And bands were not career moves. They were not, you were very excited if you could get $100 going from town to town, and it paid for the third party or the third owner, fourth owner, $500 van you bought, and the bad equipment that you bought as well. And it was definitely easier then. So we had hardcore bands and punk bands, and then we toured with this band from Staten Island. They were called Sleeper, and then they changed their name to Serpico. And while I was in the band, like, it's very strange. They have a terrific singer who would dip in and out for like mental health reasons. Good friend of mine to this day. And sometimes he would call and say, "Can you do this tour?"
Right.
So I was in the van when the Equal Vision contract came. It was pretty
crazy.
Cool.
That's
I
cool.
was listening to them today. I was a huge fan of their band. So we had toured together. The guitarist had put out some of my band's records. And it was just all in the family, It was very cool.
Did that feel like I'm going to feel annoying saying this because Josh and I throw out the term full circle on this podcast so often that when I say this again, somebody's going to turn off this episode for sure. But did it feel like a full circle moment having played in a band that was signed to Equal Vision to then work with, and we'll get into more Texas stuff later, but then having Texas signed to Equal Vision? How crazy of a feeling was that?
God's honest truth, Chris, honest to God. It didn't occur to me right away. I was thinking more about some of the Equal Vision bands that I had tour managed, like Shelter, and we'd stayed at the Reddy's house when it was a punkier day, and different, very nice house, don't get me wrong, but pre-real explosion of the label. I mean, to me, it was a huge label always, but I think what I mean to say is in the least creepiest way, have always tried to stay up with music like as much as humanly possible. And the best parallel I can give you is like, I love the Eagles, but I'm not talking about the 1996 lineup anymore. I'm talking about the 2025 lineup.
Fair.
And I think that's what I realized was just keep moving forward with all the new things that are coming out. Like the things you like, note the things that are noteworthy, even if they're not your thing. And it kind of hit me about 6 months after you guys signed, like, oh my God, like this is a full circle moment. But what I was really thinking about was, I don't get all blushy on me, but I found this like prodigious, rad young band. And I'm so happy that we were able to take them out of the sticks and with a reputable company and a great group of people.
Still to this day, some of my favorite people I've met through doing music. They're incredible people.
Chris, are you blushing?
No.
Are you
know what? I'm not, and I'll tell you why I'm not. Because they signed that deal before I was in the band, so I can take zero credit for that one. I just got to go along for the ride.
Okay.
Just walked right in.
I thought you were
Yep,
blushing.
Nope. I walked in the back door and said, "Yep, I'm supposed to be here. Don't mind me. I'm supposed to be here." That's how that happened. Nah, I
You were
don't know.
the guy.
It could have been any guy.
Definitely
I just got lucky.
100%. I remember that conversation with you.
I guess we'll go ahead and jump to this a little bit. We'll come back to it later, but we're already here. Have I ever told you where I was when you called me the day to ask if I would fill in?
He was on the toilet.
No, I was not.
Know.
So I had just gotten back. So I was a manager at a Hot Topic. The location I worked at was closing. It closed while I was on tour with my old local band. When I got back, the day I got back, I went into the new store that I was being relocated to introduce myself. And I went in, had a talk with the store manager, talked about when I could start. I was walking out of the store and you called me. I took the call, stopped in my tracks, turned right back around and said, I'm going to need to put in my 2 weeks. That's literally exactly how it happened.
That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
So this is why I've never met your parents.
No, you've met my parents.
I know.
They get it. They don't care. But I just, it was like the timing of it was hilarious because I went in and said, hi, I'm Chris. I can start here anytime. Walked out the store, came back 10 minutes later and said,
Never mind.
I'll work for 2 weeks and then I'll see you later.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
God, I love that. I love knowing that, man.
It was literally the best timing ever.
I'm like,
True.
we need somebody who has no plan A.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like that is the point because this is the year that things happen or they don't. You know, it was a good ass 2 years of touring. It was insane.
2011 through the end of 2013 was just nonstop, 100 miles an hour the whole way. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was a crazy time for sure.
But great tours, would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't imagine better ones that could have happened for us in that time period for sure.
Yeah.
So you started booking shows because, as you said, for selfish reasons, you wanted to grow your own community, and then you started playing in a band. At what point does the label come into play?
That's pretty simple again, because, most of the artists at that time had released their own music. There was no teeming pool of labels like vying for this aggressive music, right?
Sure.
So, Ian Mackay from Minor Threat and Fugazi was putting out his own records. Jello Biafra from Dead Kennedys was putting out his own records. Kevin Seconds was putting out his own records from 7 Seconds. And the list goes on and on. So to us, it made total sense. I literally called the Discord House, which is the label Ian Mackay founded in the early 80s, asked for him and asked him where to press a record.
So crazy.
Told me everything. It was super open and cool. It was not commoditized at all. It was like, we were awful on that first record. There's no question. But it was also a time where we had a distribution deal through Caroline, which was I couldn't believe it because they had done all the bands I bought, Bad Brains, Youth Today, all that. And it sold because not a lot of records came out a month. I mean, I was one of the kids who would go down to the local record store and buy every record. And if they didn't have every record that came out, I drove to Smash in Georgetown. I went to Philly and I circuit, all the stores, and I bought everything I could get my hands on. And you could, sort of. I mean, I had a dishwashing check that I just blew every week,
Right.
And so our records sold. And then Caroline wanted to put out a repress of the record. And I still stand by this. I'm like, no, it's just not good. I said, we have new stuff, which probably wasn't great either, but it was markedly better than that. And they're like, no, we've been down that road before where we take the new stuff and people want the thing they want. And I'm like, I don't think they want it. I think they bought it because it was out,
Yeah, sure.
So I turned that thing down. I was like, I can't do it. And they did not want to hear new stuff. So I had put that out because that's what you did. Nobody was going to put your record out. And then my friends formed another band, which was members of ours and some other guys. And I wanted to put their stuff out. It just went on and on that way. And then when I went to college, I met Submachine, this epic drunk punk band that I always loved. And I started putting out their records. And then I meet other hardcore bands and I just started putting out records, as a thing. But I would go to shows in Wilkes-Barre and in Reading and Philly and sell them in the parking lot before I went into the show. And it was a big hustle. When you went on tour, I don't know what other bands would do, but I thought it was smart. I would call I'd find all the area record stores And I would call them and mail them like 10 on consignment with a copy of the show flyer. I'm like, if you put this on the counter, it'd be great. Most of them did it because they didn't have to pay for anything. And then you'd sell 5 or 6 copies. So you'd have like, a tiny bit of exposure and hope when you got to that sound. So I always was trying to think of things like that pre-internet, to keep it moving. But again, that wasn't for money either. That was to
exposure.
I don't know. Yes, and to advance a socio-political agenda and like all kinds of stuff like that,
Today's show is sponsored by Bestronix Pro Audio. Let's be real. Your rig is only as solid as the cables running through it. Whether you're touring the world or building out your dream setup at home, you need quality cables that won't let you down. That's where Bestronix Pro Audio comes in. BTPA specializes in full tour rig builds, custom cabling solutions, and if you're the hands-on DIY type, they've got bulk cable and connectors so you can wire up your own setup exactly how you want it. Everything they make is road-tested, built to last, and trusted by the pros. And because you're part of the Late for Load-In crew, BTPA is giving you 10% off your order. Just use the code LFLI10 at checkout and save on the best cables in the business. So don't let bad cables kill your tone or ruin your set. Hit up btpa.com, lock in that discount, and keep your rig dialed and ready for the road. What's up, road crew? We want to take a second to tell you about an awesome program for music professionals called Sight for Sound from the team over at Nevin Eyewear. If you're out on the road, whether you're a touring musician, a crew member, or working at a venue, this is for you. Nevin is offering free prescription eyewear to the people who keep the music world spinning. We're talking high-quality frames, legit prescription lenses, and zero strings attached. Just solid gear to help you see clearly while you're out there doing what you do best.
Nevin was founded by John Strauss, a guy who came up in the metal and hardcore scene, so he knows exactly how tough and thankless this life can be. Sight for Sound is his way of giving back to the scene that shaped him, supporting the people behind the music with something as simple and vital as clear vision. As Chris and I know directly from working in the music industry for the majority of our adult lives, we know there are no benefits or retirement funds, so this support is vital. All you have to do is head over to nevineyewear.com, fill out a quick form, and if you qualify, your new glasses are on the house. That's it.
It's an awesome way to take care of the folks who take care of the music, so go check it out, and hopefully we'll see you out there on the road with perfect vision. We all know that music isn't just sound, it's connection, it's healing, it's everything when you're feeling lost. That's why Late for Load-In is partnering with Heart Support, the nonprofit founded by Jake Lurs of August Burns Red to bring real, free peer support straight to you.
Are you feeling down and need someone to talk to? Just text Late for Load-In to 1-512-647-2871 and get connected with someone who understands, someone who gets how music pulls us through the hardest times. It's totally free, totally judgment-free, and 100% about supporting you through the music we love.
And if you're in a good place right now, you can be part of healing the scene. Heart Support is looking for volunteer repliers, fans like you who want to help others through the power of music. You'll be trained to support fellow fans who are struggling and join a community built on connection, mental health, and the music that keeps us going.
And again, if you need support, text Late for Load-In to the number 1-512-647-2871. If you want to be support, sign up at heartsupport.com/volunteer. Together, we're making this scene stronger.
Today's episode is brought to you by you, our incredible listeners and patrons over at patreon.com/LFLIpod. By joining, you'll get early access to episodes, exclusive monthly giveaways featuring rare memorabilia from Josh and I's time on the road, and access to our patron-only music review and reaction live streams. But that's not all. You'll also get into the Late for Load-In Road Crew Discord, where you can connect with fellow fans, submit guest requests, and drop your questions for the show. The best part? It's just $1 a month. If you love what we're doing and want to help keep the show rolling, head over to patreon.com/LFLIpod and join the road crew today. Now, back to the show.
This is going to sound really, really crazy, but how did you put out a record back then? Like what does that entail? Because the majority of listeners don't understand, they just know today's world, you upload it to, whatever distribution platform you want to use, and Tom, Dick, and Harry could put it out. Anybody could put out a song today. So what is the process like of putting out a record back then?
It's exciting because you're learning every step of the way. Most of the bands can only afford to record on like 1/4-inch tape. So you'd watch them splice it with like a razor blade and shit. Like it was pretty intense. And then you'd send the tapes off to the plant and you'd pray that like the USPS guy didn't dance on it or crush it. So
yeah.
Then you'd pray that it played okay. And
because if it's damaged, it's fucked, right?
Yeah, there's no backup for that.
Yeah, that's
no
so
digital
crazy.
backup. So
Yeah,
you would
right.
do that, and then you'd get the test pressings in the mail and pray that they translated properly. And it was very exciting, though. You're checking for the UPS truck like every day,
Yeah.
every day's Christmas. And
What
when it
was the
finally
turn
comes
time?
out, it was much quicker than now. But
Okay.
it was still a couple months. So it was
Okay,
very
okay.
exciting to like,
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I guess
yeah.
back then there still would have been way more like pressing plants and stuff, so you wouldn't be fighting for your spot in the queue.
facts. But dude, you had to mail the check.
Right.
Like you didn't, and usually it was a money order because they didn't know
Right.
if your check was good. And you wanted to
Right.
expedite it by them not having a waiting period. So then we got into like things called DATs, which were like little digital audio tapes. And they helped a little bit because they were cheaper to replicate. So you could make more backups of your master. And then it finally, went to basically like a DVR. You could send that in as a reproduction thing. But everything was recorded in analog. So then when you wanted to do a compact disc version later, it wasn't going to translate as well. But if you did an all digital version, vinyl wasn't going to sound as good. It got pretty tricky there. In the middle years, for sure.
I mean, I know you had someone to ask about all that, but I couldn't even imagine, like, the internet, going back to how awesome the internet can be. There is you can YouTube how to do literally anything. Like if you wanted to release your own record right now, you could do that if you wanted to go Google it. It would be a pain in the ass still because there's so many steps, but you could figure it out. All you had was a phone call, and then you had to hope that you got all the steps right. And I don't know. That's just, I couldn't even
were you taking notes?
Yeah. I mean, I guess he would have had to.
Yeah. And they mail you like the order form,
right.
like you can't print it at home. Like, I know, I'm fucking old. I get it, but like,
you're not that old though.
I just kept it moving forward. Right. Like, so if a new technology came out, I wanted to learn about it immediately. I wanted to utilize it and make sure that now maybe some of that dishwasher or pizza delivery money was going into a personal computer, a printer, things that could make me move a little faster. We would fax our applications.
I forget where I heard this, but I feel like somebody recently, God, I wish I could remember where I was having this conversation, but somebody was talking to me about how, I'm pretty sure they said it was Kurt Blue from Converge, was talking about booking tours through the mail, sending letters. Did you
100%.
have to do that too?
100%.
I couldn't imagine trying to book. How far in advance did you have to try to book it?
Well, and he probably left out that there was something called long distance calling. So,
sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Once you finally got the
too.
letter back that's like, hey, my name's Matt. Yeah, I'll do the show. I listened to your tape you sent me.
Right.
Call me. You'd be like, oh shit, I gotta wait till payday.
Right. Right.
And you're lost on the road. You're in a payphone. You're firing freaking quarters in and shit. Like it was madness. But it doesn't feel that crazy because you just kept moving with every new convenience. So you kind of forget. But yes, it was a very long process. Now, I mean, at the level like you guys are at, people are booking a year out, but that's not the way it was or is for most underground artists, But yeah, you had to book like 8 months out.
How did you even like route and book a tour though? Like I can't even imagine because it's like, okay, well the guy from Milwaukee didn't get back to us, so I guess we're just gonna have to skip that city.
Well, even past that too, it's pretty common when you get like a proposed routing from your booking agent before he starts booking the tour. When you're just trying to decide, hey, do we want to tour in this time period? Here's the routing I'm thinking of. Yeah, it's not uncommon for dates to get flip flopped because of availabilities of venues and stuff. Right. I couldn't imagine trying to do that while waiting for a letter to come back. Oh my God,
that is insane.
You guys are the real champions.
You had like a road atlas and you would, highlight routes and stuff. And then you might have 3 copies of it because you had alternate routes. You tried so hard to like not make long drives, but then again, you didn't give a shit because you got a show,
Right.
Yeah,
so we tried, I think I was an early adopter to like not trying to drive more than 6 hours, but found myself doing 16-hour drives overnights and stuff pretty often.
Yeah.
Because you just wanted to play. That's what it really was. You really wanted to play and be a part of that community, that one that's waiting for you.
I'll tell you that my first tour I ever did with my old local band, self-booked to an extent. We paid somebody $50 per show to book us shows. He got us all the way out to Kansas. We only played 2 of the shows, but I didn't care because I was so stoked to be out there with my friends, and the shows we did get to play. To me, I felt like a fucking rock star. There's probably 5 people at each show, but to me, because I was taking my band with the music that I wrote in our van and trailer that we bought together, and we were going on the, like, I didn't care. I was all, I would have done that 100 times over back in the day. Now, I'm too old and stingy and have bills and shit to pay now, so I won't be doing that anymore. But back then, like, that was the coolest fucking thing in the world. I didn't care.
It was the coolest thing ever.
I would have driven coast to coast to play one show back in the day. You know what I mean? Without a question.
Did.
Well, I mean,
you started a tour on the West Coast. I remember that.
Yeah, but it was for a tour. But yes, we did do that. Yeah, we drove straight.
I loved that about Texas.
Oh, we were down. We were road dogs. We were ready to do anything always.
Did you learn anything in particular from those early days that you still carry with you today?
It's just so cheesy, but it's just so true that I really fucking love it. I'm not kidding. Like, when I think about people talking about flat tires and adversity and stuff, and I took a lot of, I got in the habit of writing down like a page or 2 about every day. Oh my goodness. I was like the posse king. I just never had a bad day in my life. And I know, still? Yeah.
That would be cool. That would be cool to publish.
Well, for an audience of 6 or 7 people,
those 6 or 7, that might resonate,
But it is the woman. My wife had them transcribed like a number of years ago, like typed out, and the woman who did that work was like, I want to have lunch with him. And I was like, oh, I'm much more curmudgeonly now. No, but my best friend and I always said, like, the worst day on the road's better than the best day at home.
100%.
And it's not because we didn't hate home. We loved home. I kept coming home. I kept shouting at the rooftops, Lancaster rules, but that's because I wanted my scene to be like reputable and cool. And I wanted people to come there. And it got very cool. Like the whole city, it's really evolved over the last decades. But I think that to Chris's point, like loved going to new areas and couldn't believe that I got to play music while I was there. If you think about it, like I don't golf, like I'm not good. I'm not interested, but who buys golf clubs and then says, now I need paid,
Right.
I took 12 golf lessons. I spent a bag on these clubs and now I'm not doing it until I get paid. I never thought that way about music. Right. I didn't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was so damn happy to not be charged to play my music.
Yeah, sure.
I just thought it was awesome.
You've brought up how much you like scream from the rooftops that Lancaster is great. And you might be, out of anybody I know, the person who loves your city the most, like hands down. What is it about Lancaster that has like that just draws you in so much that you've lived there your whole life, you don't want to leave, you love it? Like what is it about Lancaster? And don't get me, I love Lancaster too. It has a special place in my heart as well, but I'm just curious what it is for you that really has made you fall in love with it.
A lot of the people that I have worked with now are also from the county, so that makes it super special. But it might be because I left so much.
Sure.
I will give that. Like if my daughters want to move, like I get it, because they didn't travel, 6 to 10 months a year for 10 years or whatever. So that part, I will say, I'm not being entirely fair to people, but I think this place has you can drive 6 miles and be in the middle of nothing and see people with no electricity riding behind horses to till a farm. And then you drive 6 miles.
I have got to see that.
You have a city.
Josh,
you have a city.
While we're there for launch, I have to take you to Ephrata where Texas started and take you to their Walmart where they have parking for a horse and buggy.
I have got to see this.
I'll take you there.
I have got to see it.
Sheets has horse and buggy parking.
Yeah.
I have got to see this.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I have got to see it. This sounds like some shit out of the movies.
It does, but it's real life.
There it is. And that's part of it, Chris, is like, I knew how remarkable that was. I mean, all growing up, I bored my kids to tears because every time we passed like a horse and buggy, I'd be like, never, ever get sick of that.
Yep.
That is super unique. What's happening right there. Don't think that this isn't part of what makes this area so distinguishable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then on the adverse, we had this rad, like underground comic book store. Thank God, one of the old punk guys opened a record store. We had a club. Thank God that guy opened, in the 80s. And we had the infrastructure for like a really cool poppin' like area. And I was really excited about that. Having been to other places that didn't have that were similar size when I was a kid, I think I picked up on it really quickly. Like, damn, we're lucky.
So you just said some punk guy opened a record store, but you also opened a record store. At what point did the CI storefronts start to open up? Because is this your third one you're in now, or your second one? Your second location?
Might be the fourth.
Fourth, okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but we're gonna celebrate 30 years in August, so it's not too bad.
Pretty good.
It's funny you should ask that. So there was a store called Web of Sound, and it was this guy named Bill, and I idolized him because I was like 13, skating downtown like the 3-4 miles to his shop, blowing all my newspaper and dishwashing money. And the day he closed, I opened in that location the next day with his permission, because I had to be like, please, punk rock forefather, do you bless this union? And he did. So the day he closed, the next day, what was then Corrupted Image Records, CI Records, opened in the exact location where Web of Sound closed.
That's awesome. And so ever since then, you've had a storefront.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And we had 3 stores. I had one near Hagerstown and Greencastle that I did with Tad Thomas from Anti-Racist Action. And then I had one in Philly on South Street that I was doing with Pat Leck from a band called Violent Society. And then later, so Relapse Records was from Lancaster. And I knew Bill growing up. Yes.
I had no clue.
Me neither.
Yep.
That's wild.
And
I had no clue.
He ran Millersville. And then Matt Jacobson joined Bill pretty early, and he moved to Lancaster. So we would hang out a lot. And I loved a lot of his bands. He loved a lot of the shows I did and some of the bands I put out. We became buddies, and he said he wanted to open on South Street. And I said, oh, no. So CI and Relapse merged into one shop like immediately.
No
we ran
shit.
that for like 6 years. Yeah.
I had no clue.
That's
it was rad.
Fully was unaware of that. That's cool. That's really awesome.
I think I'm the only one who's ever done an anal cunt in store. So you got that going for you.
You know what? You know what? I think that you'll probably die with that. That we'll put that on your gravestone.
Yeah.
The only guy that got an anal cunt in store and with no context whatsoever.
No
Seth
context.
behaved. He behaved. He was not an asshole that day.
I was going to ask if they were cool or not.
Well, I mean, when you're a kid, you're like terrified of that band, and also like I have to own it, but I need to hide it. Right. Yeah, it was bad.
I don't know what they look like, but just their band name alone, I would be fucking terrified.
Yes,
bro. The logo.
All the logos in that genre. Come on now.
Yeah.
I would be terrified.
Did you or do you? I mean, probably not as much these days because Lancaster is a reputable scene now. It's not Philly, it's not Baltimore, but it sits nicely in between there. But when people come to Lancaster for a show, they know it's going to be a good show. It's become, because of you booking shows and anyone else that works there, and then you've got the August Burns Reds who's come from there, and like it's a big deal market now. In my opinion, I'm obviously biased, but
no, right? Like,
yes.
No,
yeah.
What's the main venue there?
It was Chameleon Club.
It's gone.
That's been tragic. Yeah, that was. Yeah, okay. It was doing very poorly financially well before the shutdown, and then I think that was like the end of the road.
Did you have trouble getting people to like treat you, the label, and the scene as a serious thing at any point? Because it's not, again, you don't think Lancaster County, oh, this is the heavy metal mecca of the world, the punk mecca of the world. Right. Did you have a hard time getting people to take you serious for like, honestly, bigger tours?
Music fans were, and agents and bands who were self-booking, whatever, they were fine. It's actually the adults here that had treated me like a 16-year-old kid from the time I was 16 to the time I was 46. Like
that's so crazy.
Just felt like it was some kind of childish game or something. And then thankfully, a lot of you really started to be globally successful, right? So all of a sudden I get a text message like, holy shit, that line, is that yours? And I'm like, yeah, I'm at the club tonight. Oh my God, I had no idea. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's on you. I've known you for 20 years.
Yeah. I've been trying to tell you.
And then I'm like, what did you think my side hustle was? Like I deal drugs or something? Like,
Right.
I got my kid get braces. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. That's
is it like a small community where you all know each other?
It was, and I still think it's pretty tight, you know?
Yeah.
I have a unique set of circumstances. Like I said, in the really mindful of anything creepy, like running the all ages club that operated for 12 years. And then we just reopened it, you know, with a new partner, Kyle, and he's awesome. I have proximity to like brand new musicians and bands, right? So I get to see them, hear them, meet them. They're sending emails with new songs and stuff. So I feel very fortunate. So I feel very fortunate to know every new what's next, right? That's coming out of this area and just nice people who are starting their journey. But I do think there's certainly distance, you know, from the oldest school and then, you know, people my age who still think like August Burns Red's a new band, you know, or
right.
And we all have that. But I aim to merge it all together. You know, I drag some of those old fuckers out to shows too. And I'm like, look, it's cool, you know? So there's not as much of a gap. I think most people are in touch and know each other, it's nice.
You brought up one of my favorite hole in the wall venues, the Champ. I fucking loved that place so much. And I was sad when I heard that you were closing it down. How did it come about to move it to, because you brought it back, but moved to a new location, right?
Yeah. So the guy there, first of all, regardless of whether he's an asshole or not, I can deal with assholes. That's why there's an adult in the room, you know, like you have to be adept at getting what you want. And you have to realize that as much as you'd love that to be the case, not everybody's going to be your friend. You're just going to be resources to one another. I'm a check and he's a resource, right?
Right.
But I couldn't believe he let us do it that long, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, how long were you guys there?
I mean, the Champ opened. I had been booking shows at their previous location and under their previous name, like sending them a couple shows a year. I was friendly with the guy. He was in a band, the one guy. And then they opened at that location in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. And shortly thereafter, like a year or two in, the one guy wanted to leave. The other guy didn't have enough bread to keep it going. So I grabbed a friend, Rick Gadd, and I dragged him into it and we invested in it to try to save it, like keep it going. I mean, there's no bar, you know, it's Skittles and water and tickets, right? So if people don't come, it closes.
Right.
And if people don't enter into the equation who can help bring bands and communicate full time with no other full-time job, you know, with all the musicians and stuff. And that's what I think was able to keep it going. So he comes to me one day, this guy, and he's like, oh, you know, I'm tripling your rent, but you can stay. And I'm like,
bro, that's very kind of you.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's an eviction notice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So no, you can stay. I'm like, we absolutely cannot stay. Right. Like nobody.
Not a chance.
That's
How do you expect me to survive?
You know that, right? And I said, you know, I know it's illegal. Like I know that you can't triple the rent 30 days notice, but I'm gonna let that alone. You just have to let us do an exit weekend. And it's going to dip into the month you don't want us here. No, I can't do that. And I'm like, well, that is what is going to happen.
Right.
And he's like, oh, well, you can sue me. I'm like, oh, no, I never said I was going to sue you. I said what you're doing is definitely illegal, but I don't have time for all that. I'm just telling you, I have no control over this. I certainly won't put out the call. But if I have to go to people and say the Champ was closed within 30 days with no notice and it was not given a proper burial, you might have 30 dicks spray painted on your building and I have nothing to do with it.
I would have been more than 30, I feel like.
That's a quote, dude, you know. And,
that's a great quote.
He's like, fine. That's what he did.
You work with a ton of great bands over the years with CI. Can you tell us how you came across August Burns Red and ended up signing them and putting out their first EP?
JB worked at my record store. I always liked the record store to be representative of local musicians. People were doing shows, people who had a magazine, a zine, we called them, or like anything, a radio show at a college station. I just wanted the culture like smashed together. It paid shit, you had to really like love music and that kind of thing, and how kind of, it's lax, so you met other people that had similar interests. You had to want more than just the check, I guess.
Right.
But he worked there, and at 18, 19 years old, always really liked him. Always thought he was like an old soul. Yeah, I meet a few of those.
He for sure is.
Over the course. Yeah. So he, one day, he's doing shows at Millersville Fire Hall, and I think he was using Anaheim one a couple times, and he'd hang flyers and stuff, and that was cool. But then he brings me the demo of his band, and I'm like, I mean, you have to understand, like at that time period, over 20 years ago, like they were doing things other people were not doing, with a level of complexity that they'll make fun of now. That's fine. But then, holy shit, like Kill 'Em All was mind blowing when it came out by Metallica. I'm sure they don't celebrate it as their best songwriting, but it doesn't change the fact that it was mind blowing when it came out.
100%.
And this, I just said, this is incredible for having done this under a year, in a chicken coop under lock and key. And I'm like, I'd like to put this out. And that's really how it happened. He was like, put it out? What? So that's how it happened. We went to McDonald's.
Just to celebrate the deal.
The big
I'm going out to dinner with my label owner. He took me to McDonald's. He got me a Happy Meal.
Hey, Chris, you
got him two. You got two.
It was 2 for 2. It was 2 for 2 at the time.
Of course there was. There was some special going on that night, and that's why you took them. Of course.
I made it rain, bro. I made it rain.
That's
who could say no to that?
That's wild. So how many CI's put out a ton of records, right? Was that one of the records that you felt like kind of made people start to perk up and pay attention, or was there a record before that you felt was like you really put the label on the map?
There were waves. So before that, there was a wave with like hardcore punk stuff. And like some of it was crust punk and like grindy stuff. Like, so there was guys from New York that were in bands called like Indecision and like these bigger bands that I had been putting out their other projects. Like one guy from Serpico was in a grind band called CR. He's also was in Shelter. He was in Kill Your Idols. He was a pretty big deal. And like, then I started eliciting interest from emo and hardcore artists that had put out records on like Revelation Records, like one of the old standard hardcore record labels that did like Gorilla Biscuits and Youth of Today and Quicksand. And that was cool because I started putting out a lot of singles by them. This guy was singing for a band called All. All was the Descendants without Milo Aukerman. I put out his record, a band called The Pavers. So that wave was really good. A guy named who was on Equal Vision, One Line Drawing, Jonah Matranga. I put out a couple records by him. And then that started to die down a little. And then there was a Lancaster band, Sadaharu, who got a lot of heat in alternative press when that was a thing, like top 100 bands to watch. And that was during the Refused kind of ascension. They were very much compared to them and Bronx. And then the Pink Spiders came out of Nashville. That was a unheard sound in a number of years since like the Replacements or some of those bands from the late 70s. So that band had tremendous success. We found them $900 recording, put out the record. They get signed to Geffen. They are main stage on Warped Tour. The lineups like Taking Back Sunday, maybe Fall Out Boy, Coheed and Cambria, My Chemical Romance, and the Pink Spiders. Like that's the 5 on the main.
Crazy.
They sold 40,000 records in a summer on Warped Tour, all pressed by yours truly. This is this was learning a lot, right? I talk about this all day today, but I was talking about it earlier with you. Being prepared for success doesn't mean you haven't been successful. Being prepared for a different kind of success. So I was prepared. I knew what it meant to have a production and distribution deal. Not because you couldn't even raise the money, because I would have sold everything to keep pressing those records, but because you couldn't curry favor with the pressing plant the way the larger entity that was helping you could, right? You couldn't get end caps what they used to have in, Best Buy and what used to be Circuit City and what used to be Sam Goody. So we got all those things, man, for this band and kept up with like these major label, or quasi major label artists that were definitely signed, but maybe it didn't come out yet. So that was a game change summer for me. And Jordan
can't even imagine.
Sure wanted to buy the record out, and I said no, and that was awkward. Rick Ocasek was producing the record from the Cars. He'd done the Bad Brains album. That's what I cared about mostly.
Sure, sure.
Jerry Harrison from Talking Heads was involved in it, and it was a wild time. I went to the record release party in New York. They're recording at Rainbow, all before this Warped Tour, smoking weed with Snoop Dogg in the hallway. Like all these things are happening, crazy stuff. And
you're on cloud nine at that time.
Yeah, and this guy wanted my record to go away, which I understand. Like the recording's bad and all that, but I had like 4 or 5 songs on that record that came out later on the Geffen record. I did all the right things. I put a big sticker that says, "This is not the Geffen record, but if you care, this is the Pink Spiders in their early days." And I think that people really liked that. They weren't being tricked,
Right. Yeah.
So they have this #1 song on TRL for like 8 weeks, but it's on my record, but it's not the recording that's #1 on TRL.
Right.
So, I remember at that party, I'm meeting Jordan for the first time. And I'm Jeremy Weiss. He's like, "Yeah, you're the thorn in my side." Damn.
Sorry to hear that.
That was awkward. That was awkward.
Yeah, I can imagine that not feeling so awesome. So awesome.
Let me do a wiggle for you and make it even more uncomfortable.
Yeah. I was worried I had Nirvana bleach, and I was like, screw that. It's not just about the bread. I took a chance. Like, down with this,
100%. 100%.
That was a good period. And then at the end of that was August Burns Red. And that brought out, I knew I had something really good in that band because the demos I was getting from that genre were so next level, like I was so stoked to open the packages and listen to the shit people were mailing me. Texas in July, we'll get to that. But, With Life in Mind and Where the Ocean Meets the Sky, like these demos were so prepared. They were so good. Like it was an easy decision. And as August Burns Red got more popular, we were able to do like Haste the Day, 7 Inches, Gwen Stacy stuff. Juliana Theory was a band I courted right before that to do their, that guy was in Zayo and he had an indie rock band that toured like Jimmy Eat World, kind of sounded like that. I was able to do the vinyl of their record. Like things were really coming. The bridge was coming, and August Burns Red kind of put me in this full on metalcore and metal phase.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because I'm like, man, if people go back and go through the catalog, like
they're going to be very confused.
They're going to be like, what the hell? Yeah. But I loved that because I have always loved like a broad variety of music in the underground. And I think you can be extreme with an acoustic guitar. You can put my head in a blender,
Yeah,
you kind of lead me to my next question was how did you end up finding and taking on Texas in July?
Well, I think the August Burns Red gold rush was upon me, right? And there were younger people that were very influenced by their positivity, but also their absolute devotion to their craft. They still do all the time, every day. They practice more than anybody I know, and they write constantly. And I enter this not next generation, just younger group who like looked up to them and accepted the challenge. Next thing I know, holy shit, there are 2 of the world's best drummers from Lancaster County. Like this is mind blowing, And the guitar players are just constantly challenging themselves for odd time change signature, and making sure that the riffing is just hard to replicate. So they brought me Snoop Dogg the Cricket.
I'm so glad that was before my time, so I can laugh at that like everyone else.
But it wasn't as, and they know this, it wasn't as compelling as the first.
You don't say.
Red effort.
You don't say.
But I'm telling you, Chris, you could pull out the Alex was trying new current things. He's got a 14-year-old who can pig squeal like Job for a Cowboy, and and
sure.
he's trying lows and highs, mostly highs at that time because he was 14.
Yep, it's a child.
But I was,
even though he looked like he was 65.
He always looked 28. Yeah. I ran out of the womb, I think.
Yep.
But,
born with a beard.
Yeah, yes. But the guitar work, the time signatures, the drumming, I remember saying, like, take this back, work on a few things, right? So what's funny about Salt of the Earth was that impressed upon me as much a metalcore like song structure, but a screamo. Like, it almost reached back to some of the bands I was doing, like Albert React, and like things that really high pitched, like agonizing, kind of screaming. There was a huge wave of that in the 90s that I loved, like Orchid and yeah. So I won't bore you with all the names, Locust and all that stuff, but I just loved it. And I felt like they happened upon it because he was young.
Yeah.
But I knew, it's so weird. I don't mean to sound like a know-it-all, but I knew his vocals would change. And there would be this, like, what can I say? Like, really cred, like, early release that was like painful,
Right.
not painful to listen to. Like,
yeah, right.
He sounded like, he was in kind of in real agony. And I really saw like validity in that. And Alex knew older bands more than any other artist I've ever worked with that was that much younger than me. And he would love to blow my mind, like saying, sounds like Fugazi, I'd be like, what? You're 14, but he did his research. So I don't think that was all by accident.
No, I mean, he's an old soul. You talk about JB being an old soul. Alex has been an old soul since the day I met him, and he was probably 15 or 16. Like,
it's true.
He's always been that way. That doesn't shock me at all. So did you pick up the band before they did Salt of the Earth, or did they go do the Salt of the Earth and bring it to you?
They brought me the demo, and then I started, the conversation was live. Like, to me, what they call it today is like a developing artist deal.
Sure.
Right. I was committed. You deliver the goods and you're in. And I love Salt of the Earth. I think it's great. And I love the contrast of the redone songs. I get it. But if you're an outside guy and you've got to, you also, like I said, can kind of, it's reminiscent of some of the stuff that you liked prior to that. Also, I love the evolution of a band. I just do. I always have. I'm like a completist on my favorite bands. I defend their worst records.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm always looking for that, like, thing they're showing you that you didn't know before. And maybe it's not the most attractive side, but there's merit to it.
Look, my favorite band in the world put out a record called Saint Anger, so I know what it's like to fucking defend a turd, and that's a turd, And I'm not afraid to say it, but I'll still fight somebody who's got something bad to say about Papa Hetfield, because I'm not hearing that.
Here goes again with the Papa Hetfield thing. Here we go with this again.
Legends gonna be legends.
Yep.
Josh,
anyway,
that's the way it goes. I was a load detractor. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Well, you're wrong, and it's okay. It's okay for you to be wrong sometimes, all right?
There you go.
I told you.
That's it.
I told you. I'll fight to the death on that topic.
Dude, I was listening to music today that is objectively bad.
Yeah.
Like, but everything about it spoke to me. And that's what I like about it,
Yeah.
I don't give a shit how it was produced or how the time they slipped time or this. Like, if I believed them with my mind, body, and soul, like, look, I'm clenching my teeth, that's it. And I will forever be devoted to that. And here's these young guys from this tiny ass town that found like their anger, found their frustration, found their positivity, found their determination. That, to me, is like why I will love the catalog.
Yeah.
The whole catalog,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I feel like Salt of the Earth, like, I mean, we're talking about MySpace days here, right? So, like, I do remember there being a ton of buzz about the band, but I feel like the shift really happened to like, oh, wait a minute, you have to pay attention to this band once I Am came out, right? Like,
definitely.
Elements went up on the MySpace player, and it's just like game over. Everybody has to pay attention to this band. Like I very vividly remember that moment of like they put up that song, and I was like, oh shit, like this is a different thing. And then I, somehow stumble into that picture, and the success of the band has nothing to do with me. I was just, like I said earlier, I was along for the ride. I was a piece of the puzzle, but it didn't happen because of me. But I don't know. It's crazy to me that you were able to see a vision of what the band would become based off of Salt of the Earth. Like I said, when I hear it, I can't listen to that record. Like I've played Hook Line 10,000 times, right?
Thank you for that, by the way. Thank you for doing that.
It's not bad. I think you could just tell that they're young. Like, they're young, and like the production's not super awesome because it's early Carson stuff when he was still doing it part-time. It's like, doesn't hold up to the current Atrium product. And so I'm doing a lot of comparing, but it's a lot because they were kids. So it's not bad. I just comparing to what it could have been. I don't know. I struggle with it, but it's just crazy to me that you were able to see that. Yeah.
Think about the beauty of what you just said.
Yeah.
The band was evolving and exploring and improving.
Yeah.
The studio was evolving and exploring and improving. And they were all part of the same community, right?
Yeah.
The label they're on is evolving and exploring and improving. I'm dipping into management ideas for the first time and evolving and exploring. And you get the rest. But everybody, every part of that was like growing together. And when you hear that about like the Incubus Squad or like, something like that, the tour manager, the manager, everybody stayed together. You're like, oh, that's beautiful. Why do we punish it? Look, this was all part of that journey. And I love that, man. I just love it,
Yeah.
So I'm not deaf. Like I know where the band really found like their true, distinctive, godlike, pursuit sound. But I still love the journey. I just
something about it spoke to you.
Yeah, that's
totally,
fair.
dude. Like when Gerard Way played at the Chameleon and got made fun of by the thugs with plugs, I'm standing there going, you guys are dumb, man. That guy's the shit, man.
Yeah.
You just wait. Or when 21 Pilots played the Burrito Shop at launch,
right.
That stuff that's all part of the journey.
Yeah.
Like, so were they as good as they are now? No. But then it was so compelling and different that, So I'm going to defend it. You're not going to win me over.
That's totally fair. and I, as much as I can't listen to that record like that, without that record, the band would have never gotten to I Am, which would have never led to me getting into the band. Like I can appreciate what it did for the band and the band's lineage. I just can't go back and listen to it. But
I'm going to challenge you for a second though, because I want you to take everything he just said. I want you to take everything that he just said and then go back and try to listen to it from that perspective.
Fine, I will.
Just try it one time and see what the outcome is.
All right, you got me there. That's
not fair, Chris. Your kid is born with like human snot all over it, somebody shit, and then you're like, I can't look at those pictures.
But look,
because there's so much.
Listen.
True.
You listen.
Hey, he's got a point.
That's
Chris.
a point. But they clean my kid off before they hand it to me. It's not still covered in shit when I get it.
Give the man his credit.
All right.
He's got a really good point.
To the medical community for cleaning it off. Because I have to agree. I might be turning a corner now.
All right. So I've got one for you about Texas, and then we'll move back to talking about some launch stuff. But you, like you said, you put out Salt of the Earth and I Am, and you've done a couple of represses. Like you had the records remixed and did a re-release, which is really cool. Because I actually, maybe that's what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll listen to the remixed version of Salt of the Earth, and maybe
reflections stuff. Right?
Yeah, right.
No.
All right, fine. I'll go back and listen to the OG. Fine, you got me. All right,
you
fine.
You have to, because you have to take it all for what it is. At face value, you have to take what he just said and implement it to the listening process.
All right, fine. You got me. I'll do that.
All right, now go back to your question.
So you were the owner of the label. First band you managed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, every independent label managed every band, but
right.
It wasn't like a title. Yeah.
Right. And then for a while, you were also the band's booking agent. So you probably know the band. down to the core of its DNA, maybe even better than most of us who were in the band. Like, I think that you probably understand the band to a deeper level than anybody else could ever understand the band. Roughly 10 years removed from when the band called it quits, can you see some missteps that we may have taken that led to us putting the band away for a while? Because I've done and I'm sure you can imagine, but I've done every bit of, like, in hindsight, like, trying to figure out where we went wrong, where there were so many times where I was like, this is the record that's going to connect. This is the song that's going to connect. This is the tour that's going to do it. And never really getting past a certain point. Do you feel like there's anything along the way where we just, like, maybe there's two paths in front of us, we went this way, we should have gone that way, and it would have put us in a better place? Can you think of any moments like that?
Definitely not musically. Minor, tiny things,
Sure.
like that every band does. I don't like that t-shirt. Yeah, that's not for you. Right? What do people want? Things like that, maybe.
Yep.
But I can't argue, because there's like a shitload of credibility in that as well.
Sure.
Maybe like a slight rush to put the past behind you, not realizing that, like, I'll use the most generic example on earth. Like, the Rolling Stones have been playing Satisfaction way past the time that they're getting any satisfaction out of playing it. And I think I said that in Texas in July meetings. When there
Probably.
were arguments about hook line, right?
Yeah.
Let it happen. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the way it goes. I
Yep.
mean, Tame Impala is going to be playing Let It Happen for the
Right.
rest of their lives,
Right.
where they're going to get booed off stage. Like, these are just facts. And I think that's the push and pull of being an indie cred member of a scene, and like, somebody who's not thinking about it that way, struggling with what was happening. Was there was like an economy developing in extreme music. So you want to keep it real, but then you're kind of mad that the economics aren't keeping up with the time you've put in, not realizing that the unforced error, and this is really about Texas now, is like discounting the people that celebrated those earlier songs, because now you're lopping them off and expecting, that's the stuff I think a lot of bands do with, like, merch, with imagery, and with back catalog. So I think Texas actually did a very good job of respecting the back catalog, even if the van or bus talks were like, that's human. Like, you just don't get as much excitement
I'll tell you,
out of playing.
there were only a handful of shows where we would save hook line for the encore song, and we'd walk off, and there'd be no encore chant, and we'd all look at each other and be like, "Fuck yes, we don't have to play it tonight." Like, it definitely happened a couple times for sure.
Yeah. But it was the exception, right?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, 100%.
I don't think so, though. I think that what was happening around the tail end of the first go at Texas in July was a very understandable fatigue. It's a very sensitive age where you're like, I'm falling in love with someone. I want to provide for them. Maybe, my parents have been supportive, but maybe I owe them, more,
Right.
from production, from my life. And it made sense. But I do think the biggest mistake was calling it.
Yeah.
That's what I begged one of your band members, just don't call it.
Yep.
Just go away, for a while, but don't call it.
Yep.
And I stand behind that, because
That was definitely
that
was definitely the better move.
well, you waited way longer, because then it was truly a reunion.
Right.
But I was worried that 24-year-olds would be 28-year-olds and realize, oh my gosh, like, I want to do this again, and then get this clap back about, they just did that, blah, blah, blah. So I'm always thinking,
Yep.
Listen, I got to say this, like, if you think about any successful athlete, I've never heard anyone who, like, Saquon Barkley wins the Super Bowl, he's not like, no thanks to my parents. Oh, we know
he won it.
I'm sorry, I was lost there for a second. But
we get it, okay? We get it.
Yeah, we know.
But it's the next bird's turn. I understand. But for now,
we hope
my
so.
bird's got this one.
Yeah.
No, our
You
birds
can have
choke every playoff. So
enjoy it while you have it. because if I had it, I would be surely enjoying it and rubbing it in everybody's face.
Yeah. Not a Philly fan. We're very tactful about that.
Yeah,
please.
okay.
So,
Yeah, sure you are.
Totally.
but if you think about it, like anybody else who's aspired to great heights, Tiger Woods, whoever, they always thank like
Yeah, of course.
some coaches and parents, right? You guys had the parents. That was very rare. Like they were in your corner.
Yep.
They made a grand bargain with me. Like, give me a few years to see what we can, knock out here. And they were in. They were very supportive for the most part. And then maybe I'm like the coach, like the other person that's not blood related, that's like showing support, because I wonder how many people in music and in athletics would have been great and were lost because they didn't have that kind of support. You brought up something earlier. You brought up that I was the label, the manager, the booking agent, the merch company, right? That was all by necessity. Couldn't wait to lop off like some of those things. I mean, at one point, I signed the deal with Artery to run the East Coast just to make Texas an Artery band. Like these were things that I was very aware of. Like, how do you bring the big city to Lancaster? It's like, we'll be that thing, strike all these deals. So that's like, all of that was with this Texas in July, this management client growth in mind, right? And then as the brand grows, it's good that it's with Merch Now, and it's good that it's with Equal Vision. These are all good things because on a technical level, while there was nothing prohibiting us in Pennsylvania from any of this legally, this is frowned upon big time in like California, New York, and parts of it are illegal, So we had, to me, I wanted to be that other adult who was also saying, go, 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 because you saw something in them.
Right.
And you always hear those documentaries, 30 for 30 or whatever it is, like, in seventh grade, I saw something in him. Well, now I had like 5 guys. One of them had a learner's permit and I saw something in them. So what am I going to do?
Right.
What am I going to do about it? That's what I decided with Texas. And I don't regret a second of it. It was
so
awesome.
crazy.
What's your favorite memory about touring Southeast Asia with
Definitely
Texas in July?
Sleeping in a bed with Chris.
That's what I was looking for. That's why I put it in the questions. I knew it. I knew it. And what did you do when you were sleeping in a bed with me, Jeremy? Go ahead. Own up to it. Right here for the world to hear. Go ahead. Tell everyone.
Perfect gentleman. I didn't say much. But
with your top mouth.
But
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jeremy. You got this.
Can't watch this. Well, there were night noises. There were tremors.
Jeremy blew the curtains off the windows in the room we were sleeping in.
And he took it like a champ, occasional closed fister right in the pec. And I'm like, yeah, I deserve that. And he handled it wonderfully. He had a hoodie that he pulled completely shut. Right?
You know what? Those are like some of my favorite touring memories ever, though, because not specifically you shitting your pants in bed with me, but just those tours.
Silliness.
Like for instance, somewhere in Southeast Asia, people bringing you their phones after the show to take pictures of us, the band guys, with them, but you also taking a million selfies of yourself, and like all of that kind of shit you were doing.
Home with a present.
Those tours were so fucking fun. They were good times. So being shit on aside, I still look back on them fondly.
Wasn't it the 19-cent cone too?
Yes, it was.
In McDonald's.
Yep, in Australia. Yep, I remember. I also remember you driving the van through the night, and you kept seeing flashes, and then whatever his name was, whose van it was like
Jake.
Yeah, Jake was like, oh no, those are speeding cameras.
Wait, he's like, how you doing? Yeah, I told him take a nap. I have to drive on every continent, it's something. I can drive. And he's like, I said, hey, well, isn't the flashing? He's like, I'd gotten like 5 tickets. I'm like, you can drive. It was horrible.
Oh, that's great. Horrible.
But McDonald's had a 19-cent ice cream cone, so I'd buy like 18 of them and make it rain. Yeah. man.
make it rain.
I tell you, dude, I think you may not remember this as well, but we got into Thailand. I knew this old punk guy named Jockey, and I was
Oh yeah.
able, because
Oh
I
yeah.
wanted to really tie, like, I wanted to get this band to Australia. So I had this great guy, Matt Leost, who was booking in Australia, but he was French, and I could speak a little French to him. We hit it off, and he brings them there. And I knew that we are unified people to an extent. And then there was like this Chinese promoter who got involved. And of course, the Japanese. I had been taking bands to Japan several times, but I really I didn't just want to do a flyover. I wanted to play Indonesia. That one got away. But Jockey was my guy who hooked up Thailand and Singapore. And I thought that would be a really unique experience for all of us. And it was, right, Chris?
Oh, it was an experience. And just so you know, Jockey's a legend in the TGI camp too. He booked them before I was in the band as well. So yeah. Jockey's a legend even in the TGI world as well.
So Jockey booked us in a town called Chiang Mai. And most people who love Thailand, like, have heard of it and whatever, but we hadn't. And as it turns out, I don't know, man. They presented like that. They put these humongous banners all over the city. And it's like, Chiang Mai welcomes America's Texas in July. Apparently, we were the first American band to play in Chiang Mai.
Wow.
So when we get there, we're grilled, man. We're on an airplane for 5 hours or something, but we got no sleep the night before. And I'm wearing like camo cargo shorts and some bullshit hardcore shirt. And we get to the hotel. Do you remember this, Chris? There was like 9 people in a like a horn, like you're standing outside the United Nations, women in dresses like holding flowers, and this guy in a suit in the middle, and there's photographers all over the place. And he's like, "Oh, I'm the mayor of Chiang Mai. Welcome. There's an interpreter. Texas in July. I'd like to speak with the manager for a few minutes, and we'd like a picture." And I'm like, "Oh, hell no. I'm going to get dressed." And I go right through him. And he's like, so I went upstairs and I'm like trying to, spit shine myself and put on something. I think I had a sick of it all polo shirt or something. And I'm like, I can't get down there like this. And then we took all the pictures like with the mayor. It was wild.
You would have thought we were the Backstreet Boys or something based on the way that they're crazy. Dude, billboards everywhere. They were running TV commercials. It was.
How many people were at the show?
Yes. A few hundred.
Jeremy, you're giving it way too much credit. I would say if it was 100, we were giving it too much credit. But it was okay.
Head count.
How interesting is that?
Here, hold on. No,
that was
it's fascinating.
Yeah, one of the coolest experiences ever, for sure.
I mean, we were Martians in that city.
100%.
Like the people that were there, I bet 10 of them had ever heard music like that. Everybody else was like running around. It was like playing a tiny town in Montana, and they just saw slam dancing. You know?
Yeah. You probably scared them all.
There's a good chance. There's a good chance. So I want to go back to, as we start to wind down here, go back to launch a little bit. One thing that I have had the most amount of respect for you with is you've brought up a couple of times, like you're just never, like your undying willingness to hustle and like just never stop. You've always got your hands in something, right? So something as big as launch and like what that undertaking is like how the hell do you balance coordinating something like that and putting something like that together and then also still be a dad and a husband? Like how the hell do you balance that work-life situation right there? I mean,
balance. I'm curious to hear this because balance is something that I personally struggle with every single day.
Me too.
Because it's
and I'm talking about doing stuff on a much smaller scale than launch, and I can't even balance that.
So it's really difficult to find that balance. So I'm curious to hear this answer.
The thing I said earlier about never appearing too stressed or too overworked or underslept or whatever to like attendees and people participating in your event, a concert or whatever. The same thing kind of applies here. Like I never came to you guys at a meeting and was like, I got to go. My kid's got a soccer game. I never said things like that.
Right.
I just said, I have to go. Right. I just don't. And I never denied, my God, you guys knew my kids, like since they were little, and you knew that I was happily married to Kirsten, and still am. I don't use that past tense for a reason. But they needed also to buy in And there were some formative years where that was complicated, especially tour managing. So I love them to the ends of the earth for that. I definitely found the time. And the work-life balance totally sucks ass. But I had this gap where I would get home at 8:30, which is very late for a parent. But then I'm totally devoted and available nonstop. And then when everyone goes to bed, 10:30, 11, I'm doing the till 3 a.m. thing. And then in the morning, I'd be available. And if I wasn't, I would be home. So if somebody needed something driven to school, no problem. If somebody needed to go to a dentist appointment, no problem. So I did very secretively craft a schedule that was helpful in different ways. Most people think, and this is the hardest time early in the marriage, that the parents are up with the kids at 6 and 7, and then they're home with them at 5:30, 6 o'clock. And I just had to really work with Kirsten to be like, that is not the lifestyle we're going to have, but I want 1,000 kids with you and I love you. So that's how it works. So I do, and I don't know if you ever knew this, Chris. I don't know if you feel this way, Josh, but like, even on show days at home where I'd have to leave for the club at like 3:30, 4:30, something like that, that entire day was devoted entirely to the family. I just didn't publicize it. Because if you think about it, like any service in life that you're seeking, if you went to the DMV and you'd be like, yeah, love to help you, but I got to take this call. It's my kid. You'd be like, what the? Like that, right? I always felt that way. Like, I don't mean I'm like that. Like, oh my God, talk to your kid, right? But most people kind of aren't like that. And I really did think that it was okay to just say, I'm not available until 3 p.m. and just give nobody a reason, because I don't think they want to hear that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's totally fair.
While also telling them how much you love your family, of course. What are you saying, Josh?
But I was saying, like, also sometimes maybe a reason could be also perceived as an excuse.
Yes.
True.
That's
valid.
It's the eternal out, right? It's the eternal out.
Right.
You used to say before kids, your grandfather died. Now you tell them that your kid's sick, right? Yeah. So I just didn't say any of it. And it did seem,
I like that.
You're always working with people that might not be at the same station in life you are as well. So does 17, 18-year-old Chris want to hear that I have to go to a ballet recital for 6-year-olds?
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah, that's true.
Be honest, right?
Probably not.
Yeah, that's true. Huh.
But
I never thought about
Chris. I did, and I rocked out so hard at those recitals.
You probably killed those daddy-daughter dances, to be honest. I know you got moves.
I did that shit, bro, and I owned it. I loved it. You
know,
but
I've seen you do the daddy-daughter cheerleading stuff, and you killed it at that. So I've seen it.
It's those old hardcore jumps, man. They come in handy.
When you started Launch, did you know it was or want it to ever be this big of a thing?
This is all credit to like the old hardcore punk guys that I still worship. Like Ian MacKaye says, if you brought something to the marketplace, and he's mostly talking about music, and you love the way it looks, and you love the way it sounds, and you love the way you performed on it, and you love the songwriting, you've succeeded. And I do believe that. I do believe that, heart and soul. So the growth of it doesn't matter. What you do want is you want to grow because the attendees expect more. Just like a band knows they have to spend most of the profit on new production because the attendee is going to want more, right? The fan is expecting you to grow, and it can hurt. And but you're a pragmatist. So yes, I wanted Launch to grow, definitely, but for the reasons that I'm practical, and I know it has to. Because otherwise it's old hat. And I got to tell you guys, my entire life, I told you, like alluded to this earlier, if I'm doing something and nobody wants it, it's okay. I'm not doing it because it's my thing. It's my baby. And people suck because they're not coming, if they don't like what I'm doing, I'll find some other artistic outlet. So Launch is also, without trying to sound patronistic, condescending, it is a huge give back. It's an opportunity for my contemporaries to give back as well. I think most of us want to, but no one asks. Right. I try to identify those people that have something to give, but no one's given them the vehicle to do that. But also, maybe they could gain something. They gain a new relationship with someone they didn't know that I have you two in mutual, or maybe they learn about a new band or a new method, that they're going to
Right.
work with as well, pick up a piece of business. But launch really is about the communal part. That communal part is totally derivative of the hardcore punk scene. And now it's not just that. Meghan Trainor played at the hotel lobby bar, obviously was not doing exploited covers or like minor threat covers.
Yeah.
Was a wonderful dynamic performer at 17 years old. That's all great. But it's for everyone, but it's still that like really intimate scene kind of culture. All of us feel, regardless of the genre we're playing or whatever, that the arts are shameful. And we all know what that's like at the Thanksgiving table. If it's not a sibling or a parent, it's an uncle or an aunt, or, somebody's condescending to you. Somebody's doubting you. Somebody's saying, but you're so smart, stuff like that.
Right.
And this is a place for that land of misfit toys that does not feel so alienated and be like, oh my God, I found people who have the same crazy ambitions that I do. So that is very gratifying. And I think you guys will see that. Chris, you've seen it to a certain extent. I hope that you feel that, because that's love, man. Like that's really cool. And I identify with that the same way I identify with Salt of the Earth.
Oh, God damn it. God damn it. You sure did. You know what? You guys win this one, okay? I'm waving the white flag over here. So you've mentioned
now I feel accomplished.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do.
And I didn't have anything to do with it. I got secondhand accomplishment.
You have mentioned some pretty big artists that have done launch. Like you mentioned 21 Pilots earlier. You just mentioned Meghan Trainor. Are there any notable alumni of launch that like people might be shocked to find out like that got their start kind of pretty early on at launch?
I mean, I was all in on Ice Nine Kills guys.
I had a feeling it was going to be one of the first ones you brought up. Yep, I knew it.
Yeah, and I definitely, my very good friend Mike Mowry was running Outer Loop out of the DC area. He's now with 10th Street. But
I just talked to him today, actually.
He's great, right? I mean, he's one of my favorite people, honestly. And Mowry and I put out a record with the singer of Youth of Today that Mowry's band is on. Like, we go back pretty far. Yeah. But he was an early believer in launch, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm trying to help. And I don't mean that like self-importantly, but at the time I'm trying to help Ice Nine Kills. I bring Mowry to their shows. He picked them up at launch. I thought that was huge. I mean, look what's happened since, they both
absolutely
really put together. They were a power couple. You know,
absolutely.
You put Spencer Charnas with Mike Mowry and they are a global sensation. So that's a big story from launch for sure. There are a couple of artists that like some of our attorney friends have gotten like multi-million-dollar deals for, which I didn't think existed anymore.
Right.
That I'm really excited about. And some collabs, a bunch of guys I ended up playing with like Blake Shelton later on and stuff because of someone they met at launch who put him in the circle, who put him in an inner circle. I love all that kind of stuff. I love those stories, man. And I know this may sound gratuitous, but it's not. I feel like a lot of Texas in July, Carousel Kings, a lot of their early, it gives you something tangible that's known in the industry circles that you did, right?
Yeah.
And I really tried with all my heart not to make it appear as if you were only playing it because it was me.
Right.
I think we did that pretty well because you drew the crowd. We had empirical data to suggest that you should be playing this, right? That you're the biggest hunk of meat in the stew in this area, right? And I think that it opens doors to other festivals. So we continue to seek out like the newest what's next. Like Deadlands, I want to say Launch might have been their first out of town show. I don't totally quote me on that, but like I love with the label, with the conference is built for this. And even with shows at the Champ, I don't want baby bands, dude. I want the zygote. I want the freaking single cell organism because I just think that is so fucking cool to watch that like go. And if you're any small part of it, it's a pretty cool feeling. It just affirms that you're not dead yet, that you got an ear and an eye for something. And if you can, again, be the assistant coach or like the freaking athletic trainer or whatever the hell reference, correlation I can make, like that's super cool. I want to be part of seeing something good, even if it's in its infancy, and encouraging it instead of being the rest of the people my age.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
What are some common mistakes you feel like you see bands making these days?
This is very common, but like comparing. I'm gonna,
I agree with that.
I'm gonna say things on this podcast.
I'm gonna say you're right
people,
away because I struggle with that myself. Admittedly, I have a very hard time with that.
I was going to tell a story about a conversation Chris and I had.
I try to tell my bands to put their horse blinders on, and you're your own. You are your own thing. Mm-hmm. Don't worry. In this business, you're going to get some opportunities, and you're going to miss some opportunities.
Right.
It's just part of the game.
It's good advice.
Go ahead and throw me under the bus, Jeremy. What did I say to you? What did I say to you?
And I'm going to drive right over his ass. So go ahead.
Hey,
I'm sure I said something ridiculous.
Trainers, Josh, you were there encouraging Chris, right, as his bro, and that's huge. Yeah. That's really important.
What did I say? Who was I comparing us to? What did I do wrong?
No, it's not a criticism. It's like just a real life situation, right? That corroborates what we're saying. Like you were talking, maybe it was about. I think maybe Texas got a blurb or write up in AP, and you and I were talking, and I don't think you were upset, but you were like, yeah, but it's not like we're on the cover, and maybe that was the Four Singers cover or something. I don't remember.
I know exactly what it was, and I'll go ahead and throw myself under the bus and admit what it was. Here it comes. Cheers. It was, and Jeremy, as soon as I say it, you're gonna immediately know. It was the AP Tour 2012 with Miss May I, The Ghost Inside, The Amity Affliction, and Like Moths to Flames. And it was because Like Moths to Flames got that tour and we didn't, and Chris was on the cover and it wasn't Alex. And I'm going to say this and admit it for the world to hear, but I want everyone that listens to this to know that it's not, this doesn't come from a shitty place. We took Like Moths to Flames on one of their very first tours ever.
You did. I know, because Mike Mallory was managing that.
Yep.
And I was returning the favor for him putting you, not returning the favor like it was all transactional, we're friends, but putting you on the We Came As Romans.
Part of the game.
So we took them on one of their very first tours ever at the end of 2010.
First tour.
And then in the spring of 2012, we took them out as direct support for our headliner. And then they just leapfrogged us, and we were very bitter about that, which sucks because we love those guys, and still to this day, I love them so much. Like they're some of my favorite people ever, but it stung to watch them jump over us, and that's right around the time that they got that tour, and we didn't, and we had a really hard time swallowing that pill. Now, they also deserved to get that tour, and they deserved the success that they were having. All of it makes sense, but it's in the moment of living through that and knowing that we're grinding our asses off and seeing them get the returns that we wanted, which is exactly what Josh is saying, is you have to have the blinders on, but we weren't doing that. It was a very hard pill to swallow, but that's exactly what that conversation was.
I think Josh is right with the horse blinders. I remember saying to you, like, Chris, you're climbing a ladder and you're looking up at how many people are above you perceivably, or how many people, how many more rungs there are. And I don't know if you remember this. I'm like, look down and look how fucking far you have climbed.
That's a great one. That's like, great. That's God, fantastic. Man.
And I agree. I like your horse blinders because there's enough for everybody. I mean, there's no doubt that like there are classical painters who like weren't like, I gotta catch up to Michelangelo. You know, like there were people that were succeeding. That was his name, Raphael or some shit. But anyway, I haven't been in fifth grade in a minute. But there's
me neither.
But except when I'm in bed with Chris, then I'm a fifth grader.
Well,
but making noises that I think are still fun.
Shitting your pants, literally.
If you're too old to laugh at farts, you got a fucking problem.
This is true.
Yeah, dude. I agree because
Yeah.
I saw this thing like this Irish guy's like, if you're not laughing at farts, you lose because you got the same amount of farts without the
Yep.
laughter.
It's true.
No matter, it's like,
That's true.
That's a good
sage
point.
wisdom, right? But yeah, I think that ambition sometimes takes a hairpin turn into envy or jealousy or
Absolutely.
covetousness or some shit, right? And it's our job, I think, the manager types and stuff and the people who are advising to just remain positive and keep showing them the growth, right?
That's it.
Sometimes
that's
a bit of competitiveness is healthy.
Absolutely. It's good.
That's
Yeah.
part of ambition. But when it turns into self-doubt, when it turns into, like I said, like a disease kind of envy, it's no good. I'm not saying, Chris, you were there. I'm saying it's extraordinarily normal.
It definitely turned itself into self-doubt for sure. And I think I think a lot of the compare game was a lot of the downfall for Texas too, is we were constantly looking at our peers and saying, why not us?
I think that's natural though too, just so you know. I think that is I think it is a natural feeling to feel, because there's some, I have some young bands that still do that, and they, that's where the horse blinders comes from. Like I try to, when they are feeling that self-doubt that again is natural, you try to coach them into the, ignore the shit around you and focus on what you can control.
Yep.
And all you can control is what is right here in front of you.
Yep.
Everything you're saying is spot on. Yeah.
I was going to say, this is a great segue into my next question for you is that what is your best advice for a young band wanting to get the most out of attending the conference?
Oh, I mean, certainly it's not a regular festival. Like, be prepared to go Warped Tour parking lot 2009, shameless self-promotion, right? That's welcome. Like, you guys know that people are going to be shooting their shot. Like that's okay. It's not obnoxious now. It's part of it. You don't have to play to have a tremendous experience and come home with a couple of chunks of work, advice, practices, relationships. That's another
knowledge.
Part of it. Yes. And I would also, you do got to show up. I can't understand. Like, I knew bands that would try forever to make an appointment with like Mike Mowry, right? Let's just stick with him for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
It's like there's 30 of them here. There's 30 people you couldn't in your life book one-on-one time with 8 of them. And it's not because they're assholes. It's because this
busy.
is set aside time.
Right.
This is your time. They're giving, you're all giving it to them. You're setting aside this time. That generosity is a luxury because most of us got to keep moving, man. We got to hustle, we can't do that all the time. So I say you got to show up, and maybe that's when you understand like how unique this is and what a unique opportunity it is. It's also super fun. So you don't have to be too intense. It is supposed to also be a party. And I've been known to make it a party.
Yeah, good.
Fair enough. Well, I feel like that's a good place for us to start winding this down. So we're going to go to this next section we call our day sheet. It's just a rapid fire section. So I'm going to throw some questions at you. Just hit me with what.
Tell me there'd be a quiz, dude.
Well, you know what? You will be graded, and I am not going to take it easy on you. So don't fuck this up. All right.
It's not at all.
All right. Your favorite travel destination?
Japan.
This says first CD, but I'm going to go first record you bought with your own money.
It was a tie. It was a 3-way tie. So I'll go really quick. 7 Seconds, Walk Together, Rock Together. 7 Seconds, The Crew, Reagan Youth, and Misfits, Legacy of Brutality.
What would be if you were on death row, what would be your last meal that you would request?
This is lame, but grilled cheese, tomato, and bacon.
That's not lame. You can't go wrong with that.
It's every time. It hits every time.
I haven't had one of those in years.
I fucking love grilled cheese. So I'm an overgrown child though. So don't take my.
That is for sure true.
Yes, that's true. Okay. Most underrated band you've worked with?
There's only one answer to this question.
Underrated is unfair. It's not a criticism. Can I say underappreciated? This
sure.
would be a
Yes. Restructure the question.
That's a great answer.
Amazing band.
I agree with that answer. This of the Apocalypse
Sorry.
is violently underappreciated, I think. And you know, it's
Amazing.
crazy. You said earlier, this is supposed to be rapid fire and I'm going on a tangent here, but I promise I'll keep it quick. Earlier, you mentioned two of the best drummers in metal drummers in the world living in the same place. How about Grant? You've got three of them.
I didn't want to bore anybody, but there's no question.
Yeah. Three of the best metal drummers of all time, all living in the greater Lancaster County area. Are you kidding me? Pretty unbelievable. Okay. Name one thing about putting together Launch that would surprise people to learn.
The cooperation, because of like the immense cost of doing so. Like, so the amount of people that are cooperating with one another, that relationships matter.
Yeah.
That sure.
Even on my end, you know, not just to them and their career.
If you could put together a dream panel for Launch, it could be anyone, dead or alive, any topic, whatever. Who would the panelists be, and what would the topic be for that panel?
Oof. Well, I know that he wouldn't appreciate this because he doesn't overly involve himself in how other people do their things. He just does things his way. But I always, and tried several times unsuccessfully, I would like to have Ian MacKaye from Fugazi, Minor Threat, and Discord Records on a panel with a diverse group of characters like Fat Mike from Fat Records, maybe Steve Reddy or Dan from Equal Vision, even like a Tony Brummel, right? Yeah. And I'd love to hear them chop it up about how to conduct oneself, because we know personally some of those people are very much in the middle with a very perfect balance of knowing like what the price point is for the marketplace, but also that people have a human soul and how to treat them with beauty and love and trust, right? And then there's these two extremes. And like I said, Ian MacKaye is not suffering any of the methods or modalities of any of these other people. He's just truly blinders on doing his thing. But I would love it if if you could hear the different aspects of like what a label is and like what the value is and what the artist value is and all that, because holy shit, they would be different stories.
Oh, 100% would. Yeah, absolutely. Coffee or tea?
All day, every day. Coffee, baby. All day, nonstop.
See, and this is why you and we get each other.
Yes. I do remember you and me seeking out coffee shops throughout Asia.
Always. You could
not always easy.
No, especially not in Southeast Asia. If you could time travel to any era in music, what would it be?
Sorry, guys. Like, definitely going to be 88 to 95. There was so much happening from the hardcore bands.
I'll have been born at some point in that time period. It's okay.
Well, from the hardcore bands of the early days of emo stuff, I'd love to go back and like take a band like the Get Up Kids and be like, just keep doing this, you know?
Right.
Because I feel like that band should be Alkaline Trio.
Sure.
I mean, they're very, very popular and I love them, but just bands like that. I'd love to be like, no, don't quit yet. It's going to change dramatically.
Right.
Maybe a little afford rent. You know? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Favorite current pop artist?
I mean, define pop. So favorite hip hop, tie between, of course, Tyler, the Creator, and Kendrick. But pop, I mean, I like SZA a lot. And
great.
I the only other one I can say like that is Don Toliver. Hooked. Sorry.
Okay. First show you ever attended?
It was definitely The Exploited, DRI, Dr. No, and Life Sentence. I ran away from home for one day and I told a 19-year-old guy that I was 17 and I was 15, and I dipped and went to Club Pizzazz in Philly on a Tuesday.
Wow.
That's a hell of a story.
Great story.
What was your last job before you went full-time in music?
Awesome question. It was definitely delivering pizza. You know,
I feel like all of us did something involving pizza at some point.
I worked at a pizza shop.
Josh worked at a pizza shop. I worked at Pizza Hut as my first job. I feel like all of us have done pizza something at some point.
I mean, at some point I was like running the 3-thing chain, right? Of course. Yeah, that's what I have to do. But I was making dough and I was throwing pies. I was an inside worker. But like delivering to me was heaven. Because you just listen to music all fucking day and night, and you just you're moving around. You can make a phone call, you know, and all that stuff. It was great.
All right, last rapid fire one for you. One artist or band that may have come across your table that maybe you passed on signing, or you just wish if you could have gotten your hands on one artist, Who would it be?
There were two opportunities that we were very close. One was Anti-Flag back in the punk rock days. I really was supposed to release a 10-inch by them. I distributed their first 7-inch because they self-released it. I really helped them in Europe and the US, and we were going to put out a record. New Red Archive signed them. The second one was more recent. Zell and I were totally chasing down Hot Mulligan, and we were this close. We were so close that Hot Mulligan reached back and had Zell do an EP. Their artwork as like a thank you for believing in them back then, you know.
Wow.
So I really would have loved that.
Yeah, I do specifically.
Success. I think they are amazing.
Yeah, they are. They're great. I do remember you and Zell specifically talking about that band quite a bit, and to watch their explosion in recent years has been really cool. Honestly, they're a very, very awesome band.
Yeah, credit where credit's due. Zell brought them to me. I was just second. I was like, absolutely, like, let's go.
Sure.
So I don't want him to watch this and send me some nasty text.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew Zell, Jeremy's taking the credit for this.
All the credit. If you could have a 5-minute conversation with Jeremy when CI Records first started, right now, what would the message be?
There was a period of my time where I definitely was very married to like a super punk rock ethic. And I think that if I had to look at that again, I realized a few years later than I would have liked, that you can still be like this really devoted person to like social causes and community without all these rules that frankly I imposed on myself. So I think that would be it, because what happened was when the scene started transitioning into in the hands of larger entities, what's now Live Nation and, you know, all those early players. I think that because I was so devoted to like a $7 door price and I couldn't possibly make it 10, I think I missed, like, I should have gone along for that journey and I would have kept a lot of those bands in my stable. I just was too worried about like what the scene would think, if the club was too nice, if the ticket price was $2 more, if I ran an ad in a magazine instead of just flyers. So I think I would tell Jeremy, I've seen the future. It's okay. There's still a place for decent people in this music business. That would have been nice to know.
Awesome.
Fair enough. Well,
that's great.
On that note, do you have any final words of wisdom for artists, bands, or just industry in general hopefuls?
Honestly, man, it's so simple. It's like, you got to remember you love it. I think the luckiest part for me was playing music that there was zero chance that this was a career thing whatsoever. So every day you did it because you just freaking loved it. You just enjoyed it so much. And now I think that maybe there's this, like, it might be a little bit of a curse that there is promise in a music career, regardless of what kind of music you're playing. And I just think that most of us would be healthiest and happiest if we would just remember we absolutely love it. And we have this craving desire to connect with people and to express ourselves artistically. I'm begging people to connect with that person inside themselves, because then everything that happens, you can be prepared and you can have your business act, and that's all recommended. But everything that happens is bonus, man, because you are deriving so much pleasure from it. I know it sounds corny, but it's just true.
Yeah.
It's just true. You have to need it. You have to need that shit. Like Sunday football, like I don't know,
Sunday football,
a cold pop or a cold beer, whatever you're into, you gotta need it, you know? And it's yours. It's yours. It's yours. All that joy is right there, you know?
Man, so I love that.
That's what I beg of people.
I love that. Where can people find you? CI Records, how can they get involved with launch? All that good stuff.
Yeah, come to launch this weekend. It's going to be a super cool community experience. It's also going to be a lot of fun. There's some kick-ass music because we've spent hundreds of hours going through 1,000 artists to identify what we think are the best representations of their genre. So it's going to be super fun. You can go to launchmusicconference.com to register, or you can register on site at the convention center. CI Records been around forever. I'm here every day. So you can stalk me, or you can email me. But cirecords.com is the place to find us as well.
Jeremy, thank you so much for chatting with us tonight. And I also want to say,
it's been a ton of fun.
I credit Josh, and I've talked about this on the podcast, but I credit Josh and another one of our very close friends for being a huge part of why I'm even here to do this and have conversations like this and have been able to make a career out of music. But I also, whether you'll take it or not, I have to give you a lot of credit for that as well, for calling me that day to, I mean, I know that you work for the band, right, when you're managing a band, and the band said, hey, we should call this guy, but you trusted their judgment enough to call. You trusted me enough to have me up and join this band that you were managing, and honestly, completely changed my life. So for that,
you'd still be working at Hot Topic.
I would 100% still be working at Hot Topic right now. So I just want to say thank you for believing in me, trusting me, and you've been an incredible friend to me and a mentor in a lot of ways. And I appreciate you and what you're doing for music in general, and I don't know, just your continued passion for all things music. I look up to it. I appreciate it, and yeah, you've been an incredible friend, and I really appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Seriously, and I'm always rooting for you forever. And thanks for rising to the occasion. Even, man, the stuff you've done since, I mean, I couldn't be happier or prouder, honestly.
I appreciate that. Well, on that note, thank you.
We'll see you this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see you in a few days.
Yes, let's do it, boys.
Hey everyone, Chris here, and I just wanted to take a second to say thanks for watching today's episode. You can check out more episodes of Late for Load-In on the right side of your screen and find any applicable links to this episode in the description down below. There you'll also find a link to our Patreon, which is the most direct way to support the show, and it's only $1 a month. Please consider giving this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to follow us on all social platforms, at Late for Load-In, at Chris_TGI, at Josh Carell. See you guys next week.